Welcome everyone to this RMS Train the Trainer session. If you have any questions today regarding the slides or anything that we cover, please feel free to add that question into the Q&A section of this WebEx. We do have some RMS Support Center folks on standby, ready to take care of those as they come in while I'm presenting. We'll also take breaks throughout the presentation to open the floor up for any questions or discussion, and then we'll also do that at the end. So to preface the training, we have some preliminary guidance on how to take in this type of training. So this training course is designed and intended for district administrators. There aren't really any prerequisites for this course, but the attendees are expected to be pretty familiar with navigating RMS, entering data, and have pretty good knowledge of the governing regulations. Upon conclusion of this training, attendees should expect to gain a deeper understanding of how RMS works, why RMS works the way it does, and gain insight on how to teach fellow RMS users. This training material can also be used as a resource to provide to users for internal district training as well. We're also recording this session and it's going to be posted on our RMS YouTube channel, so keep an eye out for that if you'd like to distribute it out to anyone else. Here we have our agenda. So first we're going to do a recap of the previous session, and we're also going to cover some updates that have occurred since our previous session as they relate to those topics. After that, we're going to get started on our topics for this session, which is going to focus on custom reports and custom reporting. We'll do a review of a lot of different elements that can be found throughout RMS and how those can be utilized. And then finally, we're going to jump into a demonstration of creating custom reports in Telerik. And then finally, to conclude the session, we'll take any questions or requests that you all may have or need to discuss. So to begin, we will look at what we covered in the last session. And as I mentioned previously, we're going to cover some of the updates that have occurred with patch releases that have come out since our last session. So our last session was really focused on documentation throughout RMS. So we started with reviewing paperless contract file and how that ties into RMS. The paperless contract file is a secure web-based application designed and certified to store official contract files as required per FAR subpart 4.8. It is not approved for classified information. The same goes for RMS, so please make sure you're adhering to the US Code Title 18, 1001. RMS has a one-way data flow to PCF, so that means that any documents generated in RMS are sent to PCF. It doesn't work the other way around. PCF is the required repository for all contract documentation, and contract files are automatically placed in the appropriate PCF folder. So an obvious segue from PCF was going into the contract file module. The last session, we reviewed this module and how it can be customized for what you would like to view using grouping and the filters on each column, and we reviewed the functions of a lot of the buttons here. As a reminder, please note that you should not be deleting accepted documents from the contract file. Not only can this have undesirable results in those coordinating RMS document packages, but once they are accepted, they are now part of legal record, so we want to keep that. So try and only delete documents before they have been accepted, and also try to delete them from within the actual document package where they reside. If you delete from within the contract file instead, this can result in an empty or corrupted attachment in the coordinating document packages. So we have an update here in the patch 407 release. We had an update to the PCF statuses for both individual documents and document packages. So here we have a list of the updated individual document statuses. So we have contract not linked to PCF, document not ready, document ready to send, sent to PCF, accepted in PCF, and then we also have the error sending to PCF status. And to the right in this image, all of the errors that can come up from PCF are listed here. So we've got invalid delivery number, PCF cabinet is in litigation, closed PCF cabinet. So these are the errors that can be returned if an error occurs with the document going to PCF. And now here we have all of the PCF statuses that have been updated for document packages. So we have not ready in review. Documents will be marked ready to send to PCF when the document package is accepted. We have accepted, and then we have the further breakdown of accepted, documents ready to send to PCF, and documents sent to PCF. So in the last session, we also reviewed how to complete document packages. In order to send documents to PCF, those document packages must be completed, and in order for them to transfer from contractor mode to the government, they must be submitted for review. So now that we're on the topic of document packages, we have a few more updates that have been made to the document package view. To clarify which information belongs to the individual file versus the entire document package, section headers have been added to the view to specify which information belongs where. Also, the maximum file size for attachments that can be uploaded to RMS is now 500 megabytes instead of the previous size limit, which was 250 megabytes. Another update made to the document package edit view is the addition of the PCF container column. So this column is only going to be editable in the contract modifications and contractor insurance modules. It will be displayed everywhere else, but in those two areas, that's the only place that it's going to be editable. So in the past, I guess this has always been editable in the contract modifications mod package tab, or document package, excuse me. But in the past, in the contractor insurance module, the SF13 was being sent to the wrong PCF cabinet. All contractor insurance documents were being sent to the same PCF cabinet, and then someone would have to go in and manually move the SF13 to the correct cabinet. So we've tried to simplify this now with the ability to select the PCF cabinet for each document within the contractor insurance document package. Okay, next up, we have a pretty significant change to RMS, so we'll spend a good bit of time reviewing this one. The Return to Contractor for Corrections button or function has been removed in some areas from RMS. Those areas being document packages, RVIs, correspondence, and transmittals. So now in correspondence, if a correspondence needs to be returned for corrections, you can either verbally communicate those corrections needed to whoever created the correspondence or facilitate the creation of a new correspondence through creating a letter to answer that. If you'd like to keep the communication within RMS, that is a way to do it. A new correspondence will need to be created to make the corrections. Now in RFIs, since this return for corrections function has been removed, you can communicate the corrections needed for an RFI that needs to be resubmitted or recreated through the government response to the RFI. So on this slide, we're showing the government response tab. And so you can fill out information for quote unquote returning the RFI. And you can also add supporting attachments that may be helpful and kind of provide guidance on how it should be resubmitted. Or again, you can verbally communicate that. If corrections are needed, then the COR/ACO approved checkbox should remain unchecked until it's been approved. And after you've completed your response, you can select the Answer Completed checkbox. That RFI will reappear in the Contractor RFIs - Waiting for Response tile, and a new RFI will need to be created with the updated corrections included, whether those be communicated verbally or through the government response, as I just reviewed. So here in the transmittals, the return process is a little different with transmittals because they do have the QA codes that can be used. So if a transmittal needs to be returned for corrections, you can code it appropriately and communicate those corrections through the government remarks area, also the secondary reviewer remarks area if you would like to do that, or if you have those available. You can add any supporting documentation if needed to the shared document package. Maybe you have like a sample document that you want to provide as an example of what you're looking for in the corrections, or you can attach standards that they may need to be aware of. And on this slide, we're showing the QA codes that require resubmittal. So we've got C, approved resubmission required. E, I think E is probably the most common one. That's going to be disapproved. G, other, and you'll specify. And then X, receipt acknowledged, does not comply, resubmit. So once that transmittal is sent back with the E code and any government remarks stating what kind of corrections are needed, the transmittal is going to be sent back to the contractor. It's going to appear in their pending contractor acknowledgement tile. And it's going to, as you can see on the bottom, it's going to show that QA code for resubmittal, and then also the government remarks, which may contain your guidance for resubmittal. So to correct this, new transmittal can be created for the resubmittal, just starting from scratch, or you can go into the existing transmittal, add another document package, fix those up, and then the contractor can send it back to the government. Next up, I just want to briefly review how to return an invoice back for corrections. This capability was not removed from the Progress Payments Invoice tab. Just kind of wanted to give a reminder that you could still do this. So when a payment needs to be returned for corrections, you can click on that button in the Invoice tab to do so, the Return for Corrections button as shown on the slide. And a prompt is going to appear asking you to confirm the return. And then after you click yes in that window, another one will appear guiding you to communicate the corrections and await resubmission. In contractor mode, when the payment is returned, it'll show up as it's still incomplete. And then as you can see at the bottom, the notice is going to let them know that it was returned for corrections. So before I move on, I just want to make sure this is a pretty significant change. So if there are any questions that we can take care of right now, or if there are any in the Q&A section.
There's no questions in Q&A right now.
Okay, great. All right, so moving on. In the last session, we also covered the QA and QC daily reports. So here's the information that can be filled out on the QC daily reports. So we've got the weather, QC narratives, deficiencies, requirements, inspection information, dates for when activity started and finished, contractors on site, labor and equipment hours recording, and mishap reporting. Not all of these may be populated for every single report, but all of it is available there as needed. And next here is the information that can be filled out for QA daily reports. Again, we have the weather, narratives, deficiencies, QA tests, QA final follow-ups, verification of QC requirements, labor interviews, and again, mishap reporting. We've also had an update made to this area since our last session. This is an update that affected the QA, QC, and Dredge reports. So when a new report is created, a new document package will be created automatically. That way it'll be ready and present for you to add any supporting documents throughout the process of filling out the form if you need to. The report completed checkbox has also been updated to be a little clearer. So at the bottom image, you can see that report completed was updated to generate QA report in document package. So that's really what the checkbox does. So we tried to clarify that. That checkbox is going to reflect the correct report. So if you were in a QC report, it would say generate QC report in document package, and the same goes for the Dredge report. Okay, and last time we also did review RFIs and how to deal with them. RFIs are used to facilitate communication between the government and contractor. They can often lead to requests for proposal or other contractual actions. So since the return for corrections capability has been removed, please remember the guidance I previously provided on how to do that moving forward. Moving on from RFIs, we also looked at correspondence. These are all the options available for creating correspondence in government mode. Similar to RFIs, this area facilitates communication between the government and contractor, a little more on the communicative side rather than the decision-making side that's involved with RFIs. And then we reviewed the submittals areas. In RMS, we explored the submittals selection view and the different ways to customize the view for what information you'd like to see. We also reviewed how to add, edit, and delete items. We then reviewed the transmittal log and how to complete and edit transmittals. So now that brings us to some transmittal log updates that have been made since the last session. So now when a transmittal is date stamped and received in government mode, the user who entered that date for the transmittal will automatically be recorded in the received by field, along with the date that was entered in the date received field. So those fields have been added. You can probably notice that it replaced the return to contractor for corrections button. And we've also added a new option that allows you to copy any secondary reviewer remarks into the government remarks area if needed. So now we have a change to how transmittals are completed. So first, we've updated the buttons at the bottom of the transmittals as shown there. The one-click function has been updated. So when using these buttons, whether that to be in contractor mode to submit to the government for review or to accept and complete a transmittal from the contractor in government mode, the ENG is going to be signed whenever you confirm this process. And also all the document packages within the transmittal will automatically be completed upon confirming the 4025 signature. Additionally, if RMS notices that there are any documents left unsigned within the transmittal, this pop-up to the right is going to come up just as a reminder that, hey, did you know that you didn't sign stuff? And then you can either click no to go back and fix that or click yes, and then it will take you to complete the transmittal. So on this slide, this is just showing that after confirmation of the ENG 4025 being signed, all document packages will become accepted in government and in contractor mode, depending on how it's being transferred or completed. Okay, and finally for the submittals area, we took a look at the Submittal Assignments module. Lots of actions for submittals can be taken here, and you can do this individually on each submittal item, or as you can see at the bottom, you can perform one action on multiple items. Our final topics for the last session was to review the import and export capabilities. So we reviewed each of these modules here. And we also did have some updates in this area, specifically to the import submittal register modules. So first, as we can see at the bottom of the slide, the module names have changed to be a little clearer and more descriptive. So the buttons down here, sorry, I'm getting my mouse. This has been changed to import submittal register -Excel. And then for specs intact, the button has also been changed to kind of reflect that these are both to import the submittal register, just adding on what type of method you'd like to use for the import. Additionally, the merge function for these imports has been updated to reduce the amount of duplicate items that can be added. This slide shows the pop-up that appears when RMS finds duplicate items in an import. You can either select to include them or leave them unselected to exclude them from the merge. Another update was to the screen for the import submittal register through Excel. As you can see on the slide, both of these screens are more or less the same now. So just trying to maintain consistency there. And then also imports, whether done through importing an Excel file or a specs intact file, must be approved by the government. Moving forward, both of those will now have to be approved. So remember that moving forward. And that concludes our recap of the previous session. We do have a video on YouTube of the previous session, so if you have any further questions, please go ahead and check that out. There are some discussion and Q&A that occurred during that session also, so if you weren't able to make it or you would just like to share it with someone else, go ahead and check out that video on our YouTube channel. I think that link may be missing from our references slide, but we'll make sure to add that upon conclusion of this training. All right, so now that we've concluded the recap, we can move on to this session's presentation. And here are the topics we're going to be reviewing today. First, we'll review the areas in the district library that can be useful when building custom reports in RMS. Those are going to be contract groups, word templates, and query definitions. Then we will review the RMS Asset Store and take a look at what's available there and how you can work there on your own. And next we'll do an overview of the custom reports screens in RMS and break down the capabilities available there. And then finally, we're going to perform a demonstration of how to build custom reports in the report generator for RMS called Telerik. So now we'll start looking at the elements available in the district library to assist in custom reporting. First up, we have the contract groups. So you can set up these groups to consist of contracts that you'd like to look at information for. If you want to see just one particular group of contracts, you can set that up here. These can be added manually or by using an SQL query. This screen is showing how to use a query to set up the contract group, which we'll demo in a couple of slides here. And this slide is showing how to manually select the contract that you want to include in the group. So before we jump in the demo, I'll just cover this next slide real quick. This is just a quick look at how to use the groups in reports. So there's an option on the parameters screen, and we'll open the application to take a look at that. So I've opened my district in RMS, and if I go into the district library, the first option here is contract groups. And I've got this one here that I've started already, but I'll switch it over to manual just to, oops. Just unselect all of those. Okay, so as you can see, this is the manual selection. Whenever you click on this add button, you can select all by checking this checkbox, or select all and just get rid of a few that you know you don't want to see. Or just select the only ones you would like to see. All right. And our screen will update based on our selections. And then if we go into the query radio button, this already has a query inserted as well. So it's selecting all columns from this contract stub table where the office ID equals this office ID number. So whenever we execute that query, we have a list of all of those contracts in this office ID number, well, under this office ID. So we'll just go back. Get back to our slide. Oh, I'm sorry. I do need to review how to insert that into a report. So we'll go to summary reports, and I will look up an easy one, something for RFIs. There we go. And in the contracts to include section, you can select this radio button, contract selected from contract group, for which ones you would like to include into the report. You can make further selections down here. I'm just going to look at all outstanding RFIs. And when you click on the preview button, the contract groups lookup will show here. And then we did leave it on query, so this is going to pull up the report for contracts within those query results. So when I click on OK, oh, there's nothing there. 1 second. Let me update this office ID real quick. Sorry about that. Oh, I got some guidance real quick first. Okay.
Oh, it's just from the, okay, contracts from contract group. Okay. Yeah, I think you were right. I think you're on the right path. You
Okay.
might have to include from some offices too. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and check that as well. And then I'll try again. And it should pull up some data for us, hopefully. And there we go. So the contracts within that contract group are displaying in the report. It's sectioning them off nicely based on our contract group. So that's how to use a contract group in a report. The contract reports should be the same, but a contract group is going to be more above the contract. Actually, I'm not sure that option is available. So, all right. So next up is Word templates. These are created, as the name states, in Microsoft Word. So these are typically used to generate correspondence and other contract-related documents. And this can also be accessed through the district library. Here we're showing the Word template screen. They're broken down by categories and subcategories here. So at the top, we have all of the Word templates listed. And if you'd like, you can use the filters on each of the column headers to narrow down your view. You can also look at the bottom section to see a full list of all the categories and the subcategories available for use. So here we've listed those categories and provided brief descriptions. I'm not going to read through all of them, but I'd like to point out the image here. So these categories do correlate with areas in RMS. So we've listed which area in RMS, which associated module relates to each template category. So closeout document is going to be found in closeout, then the closeout documents module, and so on. Now we're looking at adding a Word template. So when you click on that add button in the screen, you can either create a new document or you can create a new document by copying an existing document and making any desired edits you'd like to that. Here's what the screen will look like and the fields that are available. So let's get into the application again to look at that. So again, we'll go to the district library menu and go to the Word templates module. And as I mentioned, the screen is set up as we reviewed in the slide. And when we click on the add button, I'm going to start off with copying an existing document. Search for this one. And when you copy from an existing document, it's still going to open you with a new Word template edit view. It's just going to add a number onto the copied name. We'll just leave it as 2 for now. This author field is going to automatically populate with whichever user is creating this. But as you can see, I can change it if I need to. I could add it to if I would like. I'm going to leave it the same. And since we copied this existing document, The category was already selected when it was created. So, but if we'd like, we can add a subcategory here. So we can select admin, click OK. We can also select the date format that we'd like to appear in this document. And so since I copied this, there's already a document here. So we can click on this edit letter to contractor, which is the document that and it pulls up this in Microsoft Word. So since it's copied, we could just kind of make our edits that we'd like this to be Arial. Maybe add more information like subject. Oops. Signature, just whichever edits you'd like to make. I'm sure you guys are all familiar with Word. And then I'll save it. And then when I exit, this window is going to ask if I'd like to store that edited document into the RMS database. And I'll just click yes. And so when I reopen it, I'll click edit letter again. We'll see that all of our changes were saved to the document. Close again. Nope. So the rest of these buttons here, if you created a new document or if you'd like to replace the document that's in here, you can click on this button and it'll pull up a new blank Word file for you. If you'd like to delete it, obviously you can click here and delete. When you create a new Word template, if you already have a Word document ready for what you'd like to set up, you can import that letter here by clicking on that and selecting the file from your file explorer. You can also export the letter or the document to wherever you'd like to on your local system. And then if we click on this test letter to contractor, you can choose a contract to run this Word template in. Okay, so next I'll just show real quick creating a new one. So whenever you create a new one, you will have to select the document type, which is going to be the category. So I'll just do letter to contractor and click OK. You'll have to add a description. We'll do, oops, looks like I've done that before. Just test. Okay, and then we'll add it. And it'll pull up this same Word template edit view. So I can add, we'll just make this one part of QC. And then if I click on edit letter to contractor, there's no document that's been added. So we'll first have to create the document by clicking on this. And again, it's going to pull up a blank document in Word where you can set up the template as you'd like. Let's say you want to add a table. Maybe this is just a revision template. Revision number, author, and date. And just make any edits you'd like. This is pretty simplified for the types of templates you may use, but for this demonstration, we'll just keep it simple. Click yes to save it. And then if we'd like to check on it and make sure everything's saved, oops, wrong one. We can open it by clicking edit letter again, and then see that everything was saved for us. Okay, since I didn't make any changes, I'll check no. Go back to our slides. So that was the Word templates. Moving on. We'll now take a look at query definitions in RMS. So this area allows you to create custom aggregate queries at the district level. Even though they're created at the district level, you can still add constraints to the query so that the data can be filtered at the contract level. Okay, so here's a quick breakdown of the screen you'll see when editing or adding a query definition. So we've got the query name. When you enter that, it will not be editable after that, and we'll go through this as well. But we've got the query name, the title of the query. It's going to show in the add window as well as in the definition window. It can be edited later if you'd like. The report description, the SQL text of the actual query, any parameter information you can enter at the bottom there. And then finally the execute query button, which is going to run your query and pull up your results. Okay, so query definitions, those are also going to be in the district library down here at the bottom in the second row or second column, excuse me. So we'll click there. And here we've got all of these queries that people have created, users have created, RMS Support Center has created. So those are all going to be listed here. Okay, so we'll look at adding one. So I'll click add here. So I'll add a name. Just make one up here. This is session 3, so we'll say that. And again, like I said, you will not be able to change this. So make sure what you want to put in there is, what you'd like. I actually think I'm going to remove some of these. Cool. Okay, and then a title of the query is also required whenever you add one. So I'll just say T for train the trainer and our session information. Okay, and here is the query definition screen. You can update this title of the query if you need to. You can add a short description. This query is for session 3. And here's where you're going to actually enter the SQL text of the query. So to create these query definitions, you do have to have a little bit of a basic understanding of the SQL language. I've gotten a lot of guidance for what I'm going to be doing today. So if you have any specific questions, please go ahead and add those in the Q&A section. We've got a lot more smarter folks on standby who can answer those instead of me. Okay, so for this demonstration specifically, I have a query ready that I can insert. So just so we can focus on the query, I'm going to pull this up. So here is the query I'll be using today. Oops, I left off a row. Whoops. There we go. So here we're just trying to select a summary of the information that we want to see. That's basically what the query definitions are going to be used for. So here we're using an alias, which is R, for the fields that we're selecting from. And we also have some joins here that are joining to the contract and office tables.
Haley,
Yes.
alias is for the table name. So anytime you have more than one table inside of an SQL query, you need to have an alias. So that way, when you're selecting data, you can sit there and say, okay, this table R is going to take these items from that table, or this table X is going to take these items from that table.
Okay, great. That's very good to know. Thank you, Jen. So yes, what she said. All right. And then below the outer or the joins, we're going to have some parameter data that we'll get into a little bit later. And then finally, this last line is limiting the amount of rows that come up in the results. So we want less than or equal to 150 rows. Okay, and so since we have this parameter here, we're going to need to fill out this information down here. So the ID is going to be this right here, this field that we're pulling. Okay, and then we'll give it a title here. We'll set it as a string type. And if you'd like to add a default, you can add that here. That's just going to populate whenever you execute the query in the parameter screen. You can change it there again if needed, but if you have a specific office name or whichever type of parameter you're adding here that you'll usually use, you can add that default here.
One other thing for the parameters are always designated in the SQL by a full colon. So you put full colon, no space, and then whatever your parameter name is going to be. Generally, you don't want your parameter name to be the same name as a field name in the table because it could get confusing. So make sure your parameter name, while descriptive, is not going to match what's actually in the table. Go ahead, Haley.
Okay, do you mean this this title here?
No, the title is fine. You can put whatever you want. It's the actual ID itself. So up in the SQL code where you have the full colon, that one in the database, that field name is office_name, I believe. So having it without spaces like it's done in this one is actually okay. So it's descriptive, but it's not exactly the same as what's in the database itself.
Okay, so we'll go back into our search TTT and go back into our query and fix that here. And that should pull up the office that I'm looking for. And like I said, this parameter entry screen will show up. So if you have a different office that you'd like to look at instead of the default, you can do that here. Execute our query. And okay, so our results are coming up correctly now based off of that query that we created. Okay, whenever those query results come up, I know this is a mistake I always make. Just press the back button. Do not exit out of the screen. It will exit out of RMS as you saw me just do. I've made that mistake more than once. So just as a reminder, if you do the same. So that was a quick demo on how to create a query, execute it, and add further information.
So when using the query definitions, if you do not know the exact table names or the field names that you're looking for, there's two ways that you can get it. The most reliable way is to go to the summary reports and look for the RMS data dictionary. That report will have the list of all of the tables and all of the field names. So if you're ever wondering what something is called, go to that summary report and it will give you a list of everything. Now, when you open that summary report as doing right now, go ahead and choose, you have the options down at the bottom. You can either only select specific tables. If you know the table but not the field name, you can narrow down your result in the file itself, or you can just preview all of them and then that way you'll always have it. Personally, I downloaded the whole file and I'll go through and I'll open up PDF and I'll do a search for what I'm looking for.
Pulling up, yeah.
And what you can see here, she's showing is it shows the field name, it shows what type of field it is too. This is important for some of the more advanced queries because if you're trying to query one type, but and you're showing a different type, sometimes there are some conversions that you have to do in the SQL itself in order to make sure that it converts correctly and doesn't give you an error message. Also, you'll notice all the way to the right is the description for each of the field names, so that way you know what it's supposed to be for. And then I believe table name. Yeah, the table is at the top of it in yellow, so that's what the table is. And then all of the field names underneath that are going to be the fields that are in the table.
As she mentioned, that is a really great resource for you to go ahead and just download to your local machine.
Okay, good. All right, so for the RMS Asset Store, let me get this icon out so I can see here. In the RMS Asset Store, this is the location where users are able to actually share various different things like custom queries, document templates, standard text, user roles, report templates, things like that. So if you create anything custom inside of RMS and you happen to be working in 2 different districts and you want it to be available in the other district, the easiest way of doing that without recreating that is using the RMS Asset Store. So what you'll see up at the top, let me get my mouse over here. What you can see all the way across the top is our lovely little sort tiles that we have. This will show you the various different types of assets that have already been added to the asset store. Now, you will notice that it'll tell you who posted the particular asset to there. You will see a couple from the RMS Support Center. You'll see some from names from other districts, things like that, and also what district they posted it from, the title of whatever it happens to be, and whatever the type is. Now, the type is going to be what these sort tiles are going through. So if you click on the contract groups, all of these will only show contract groups. Same thing for queries, document templates, standard text, user roles, and report templates. All right, let's see if I can go to the next. There we go. When you click on the add button to add an asset, what you will get is this screen right here. It's going to be added to the asset store. So you have these options for adding to the asset store. Again, the contract groups, custom query, the document templates, standard user roles, and then the report templates. On the next screen, once you have chosen it, it's going to bring you a lookup field for whatever item it is that you're looking up. If it's a query in this particular case, you'll click on the blue box and it'll show you all of the queries. If it were a report template, you would click on the blue box and it would show you the report templates, etc. All right, now we're moving on to the custom reports. One thing to note, I'm going to go back here really fast to this slide right here. On the asset stores, in order to use the items that have been shared with all districts, what you'll do is you'll just double click on the item itself. It'll bring up a little view of what's going on, and there's going to be a button that says add it to your district. And that's what you're going to do in order to get it into your district so that way you can use it. If it's a query, it's going to go into the custom queries, query definitions module. If it's a document template, then it's going to go into the report templates module. All right, custom reports. Okay, oh, this box is in my way. Excuse me just a second. Let me see if I can minimize it. There we go. So to access the custom reports, we're going to be in the district library. So log into your district, you go to the district library, and then you can see the custom reports there. When you open up the custom reports, this is what you're going to see. You're going to see a list of all of the custom reports that have been created inside of your district. You're going to see who created those reports and what type those reports are. Now you'll notice there's a C and there's a D. The difference being that this is a district contract and the C is a contract. So D is summary report. C is contract report. And then, of course, you have the report menus. These menus correspond to the tabs when you log into a contract across the top, the admin, the finances, the QA, QC, submittals, closeouts, etc., that kind of stuff. So that's what these report menus come through. And as you can see, you can edit and delete the custom reports. I don't really actually use the edit button because I find it's easier just to double click and it'll bring up the edit view so that way you can edit it. When using the delete, use that with caution as always, because if it's not something that you created, somebody else created, you might want to check with them first before you delete it, just in case. So when you click on the edit view, what you'll end up showing for the custom report is this custom report edit view. Now, also, if you are going to create a new one, once you've entered the information like the report title, and I believe it's the district, it'll also come to this view as well. And the report title is editable. You can change this at any point in time, which is a good thing. This rec good right here is obviously not changeable, but this is how it gets referenced inside of the database when it's saved. So when you open up or quote unquote launch down here, your query, your custom report, what it's going to do is it's going to save a temporary file on your computer using this GUID right here in order to keep track of it. A GUID is just a unique ID for the number. So it's a graphical user ID, basically is what it is, telling you what is going to be on that one. So That is going to be used for naming scheme on your computer when you're actually locally saving it. So that way, after you finish working on it, when you save it, it'll upload it back to the database with the correct information. So looking at the other items that are in here, you have a couple of checkboxes that are here. You've got under construction, show in government mode, and what's hiding behind here is show in contractor. So if you want it to show up in the contract, you show it in this checkbox. If you only want it in summary reports, you show it in use this checkbox right here. If you're still working on it and you're not ready for it to be seen in any live reports, then you click on this lovely little checkbox that says under construction. So it's not going to go anywhere for that particular one. So then we have the report type. Now this is again where the C and the D come in. The district is again the summary reports, and the contract is going to be in the contract reports. That's where you'll find that particular report when, okay, I was wrong. It's not graphical user ID. It is global unique identifier. I apologize. That is what GUID stands for. My apologies for that. Okay, so if you want something to show up only in the summary reports, you go ahead and click on district. If you want it to show up inside of a contract itself, then you click on the contract right here. Under the report menu, again, these are the tabs inside of the contracts themselves. So you have administration, administration, finances, QA, QC, submittals, schedules, closeout, and libraries. Libraries is the only one that's not got a designated tab inside of a contract, but it's basically referring to the libraries for district library and system library when using for summary reports. Then down here, you have a little report description. It's always a good idea to add a report description to anything that you're working on, especially if it's custom. So that way, anybody who comes behind you and wants to know if it's going to work for them or wants to be able to know what it does, they can just read this quick description and know what it's going to be doing. Now, the next thing that you're going to want to know about is the required collections down here. With the Telerik custom reports, one of the biggest things to remember and keep in mind is you can only use a one query in order to get all of the information. So if you're creating a custom report that is going to show some of the information with, what's it called? Let's go with, I think we're going to be doing the demonstration of RFIs. So we'll talk about RFIs. So if I have an RFI that I want to link to, let's say the RFI is linked to a specific activity, and I want to go through and I want to see all of that information in a single report, then in my custom query, I'm going to have to link those two tables together and show what I want to show up in this custom report. And then what I will do is I'll click on this lovely little plus button, which is our other add widget. And this add widget will then bring up the list of custom queries and RMS supported queries for other reports. So you can actually copy a report that we already have and modify it for the way you want it to come up. Or you can use your own queries to create your own report and choose it that way. So when you click on this, as you'll see, these are the things that will show up for the options that you can go through. It's going to give you both the custom as well as the predefined ones from the RMS Support Center. Let's see here. The report designer contract ID, this is going to need to be set to any particular contract just for testing purposes and creation purposes. So basically, when you're creating this and you want to test it, which will show on another screen here, then this is where this contract ID comes into play. So you'll just pick a contract that you want to test it off of, plop it in here, and then when you test it, it will already have something to test off of. RMS custom field collection fields, this one is currently only used for the, what's it called? It's the contract status sheet with modifications, which you can find inside of the RMS Asset Store. What this particular one does is it allows you to take a look at the contract status sheet with some specialized information on it. And the reason being is trying to put pictures into Telerik is, Telerik limits our ability to be able to do that. Telerik will not let users put in those pictures. So we have to code that stuff for you guys. And that's why we've provided it in the RMS Asset Store. But if you're using that, you will need to import those two items from the RMS Asset Store, which is the contract status sheet with mods. One's a query and one is a report. You'll need to have both of those imported into your district. And then when you come over to the custom field collections, you'll be able to, you'll select the, I forget what it's called. But it's the same, it's the only one that will show up. And then you'll be able to come over here and launch that particular report. I'm gonna see if it's on the next screen because it's hiding behind that. Oh, this is something interesting. This could go for, remember I told you guys that there were two different ways that you could find out what a query, when you're writing a custom query, what the table name and the field names were. This is one of those ways. This is the other way. Now, I don't use this one as much because it's not updated as often sometimes, because sometimes I'll sit there and I'll come in here. Well, it's not, no, it's not that. It's like this guy over here, this date received by, no, here we go. This guy right here. You see there's a little X that's right here at the very end. Now, the reason I don't use this is because this X is like, oh, I can put this in my code. And then when I go put it into my query, it says, no can do. Because anything with an underscore X at the end, that is something that is coded into the system. It's not something that's actually stored in the database. So when you see those ones, don't make sure you're not using those ones because it's not going to help you. But the nice thing about when looking at this is the way to get to this is you go to the screen that you want to get your information from. You push and hold your control key on your keyboard and then you right click. What that does is that opens up this field information overlay view, which will tell you where the data source is. This is the table name for what it's coming from. And if you're unclear, it'll come down here and give you a little bit more specific. Table equals blase, blase, and then field equals whatever the field name is. And then off of each of the columns and the sections, if there is information in the database or if it's a calculated field, it will show up in here. And so in this case, this particular field right here is the RFI underscore NO under the RFI underscore KTR table. So that's where this information comes from. And then this is talking about, so this is where she clicked on the add button. Let me go back really fast. So when you click on this add widget and you're selecting some of the stuff from here, this is where you can find out where your information is if your query isn't running right. So that's what this is at. Okay. Oh, yay. Look at this. More information about, okay, so I already did talk about this one. So I'm not going to go over that one again. However, I did talk about this one and I did talk about this one. So yeah, I talked about both of these, but I guess this is going to be on another slide. Let me move forward. Nope, it's not on another slide. So I'm going to back up. Okay. So then you also have the option of copying report template from an RMS center report. So say there's a contract report that you really like, but it's missing one field, just one field. You want to add an extra field to that one. So if you like the format of that and you want to add an extra field, you've created your query, you got that all going, and you want your format to be the same as ours. Just click on this lovely little copy report template, and then it'll give you the list of all of the reports that RMS is working on.
The next slide will kind of initiate our demonstration. We've got that top button, which is going to launch the Telerik Report Designer. And then I've actually got to get back to my application as well. One moment. So to review these bottom buttons, let's go ahead and jump into the application and start looking at the screen and the custom report setup, at least within RMS, before we get into the report designer. So we'll go to District Library, and that's where we're going to find our custom reports module. And I've got a couple ready for us to use. So we'll start with this contract custom report that I've started. So if you like to change, when you'll enter this report title whenever you add one, and then again, you're going to, whichever user created this custom report is going to be automatically populated in the author text box. You can change this if desired. As we reviewed, we've got the report type. We can do contract or district, and then we can also select which report this, or excuse me, which menu is going to show up with this report. We can also add a brief description. These four. Okay. And then here in our required collections area, this is where we're going to select the data table that we want to be able to pull data from. So I'm actually going to open another one. I know Jen did review the field information overlay as well. So I'm going to pull up another instance to have that ready to look at for the custom reports demo. As she mentioned, sometimes this can be outdated, so make sure you're checking in on that data dictionary that we reviewed earlier. So in my second instance, I'm going to pull up a contract. And for this demonstration, we're going to pick on the request for information module and the RFI information. So as we mentioned, you can hold down the control key and right click in the view, and that's going to pull up the field information overlay. What I've learned is if you keep performing that same function on your keyboard, it will darken, and then you can kind of see things a little bit better. So so right here, we can see the data source that we're looking at is RFI_contractor. So that's what we can select in this required collections area. So we can click to add, and we'll go ahead and search for that data source. And here it is. Click OK. So when we start working on our custom report in Telerik, we can kind of manipulate the application to try and pull data from this data source. So since this is a contract report, custom report, we do need to select a contract ID. So I'll go ahead and choose our test contract for this demonstration. And this field here, the custom collection fields, this probably won't be used very much. Only one option has been added in here for contract status, funded and unfunded changes. So we'll leave that not set. And so here are these buttons here. So when you copy a report template from an RMS Center report, it'll pull up all of the reports that have been created by us here at the RMS Support Center, and you can select to copy any of these and then make your edits in Telerik to the copied template. Whoops. Oh, whoops. Did not mean to go beyond that. Okay, and then the second button is going to copy a report template from an end user report, and same there, you can select a report that's been created by one of the end users. All right. And then finally, to kick off our demonstration, we can click here to actually launch the Report Designer Telerik. And as you saw previously, it's going to ask if you want to overwrite any existing template files. I'm just going to go ahead and say yes, I don't need those any longer. Okay, and this is what we want to see. So here is the Telerik Report Designer. This is going to be the default setup that you begin with in here. So we'll review each of these areas, starting with the Home tab up here. So this is probably going to look similar to other document editors you've worked with in the past. When you select in text boxes, this text box tools tab will show up, and if you click in a table, the table tools tab will also show up. So you can make some formatting adjustments in this, similar to like Word or something else like that. And then if you select maybe an entire column, these layout options are enabled. And then if you select a row, same thing there. You can also make some border either adjustments or enhancements here. And then we'll go to our Insert tab. So this tab is going to list a bunch of different items that you can add, starting with tables, lots of different types of charts, maps, sub-reports that you can insert into this report, and other report items. Next is the data tab. Primarily, this is probably going to be unused. RMS pulls the data in for you, so it's not really like you're creating any data from scratch. Most of the time that may be the case, other times I guess, but primarily you'll probably leave this alone. And then in our View tab, this is where we can customize what we see in this main designer area. So if we want to get rid of the Data Explorer, we can deselect that. And maybe we want to get rid of the Group Explorer, so we can deselect that. And then we change our mind. We want to add the Data Explorer back, but we'll leave the Group Explorer out. Okay. All right, and then next we have the just general design area. This is where you can select all of your elements that are listed here, whether it be by the text box or by the table, where you can select using this little border around the table. First up, I'll go ahead and change this to edit a text box. You can double click in it as I just did, or you can right click, go to the expression, and then change it this way as well. Box. I'll just add a space, and we can see it's updated through that. So since I've already made a couple of changes, if we go back to the Home tab, we can see this preview button. This is going to let you take a look at how your report is going to look while you're working on it. And as you're working on it, you can switch back and forth by clicking that same button area. Since we're in the preview, we can click it to go back to the design. And we'll get deeper into this report area. But first, I'll review these other areas. So right here, we've got the Data Explorer. This is going to show the data sources that we have available to pull data from for this report. So you can see that we've got two here. We've got this collection that we selected within our custom report that we want to use. And then we've also got this RMS contract. And you can see that only the RMS contract data source is expandable. And that's because this is the default data source that's pulled in for contract reports. So this data source is going to list all of the fields for our specific contract that we can add in. And I'll review how to add those in later. And I'll also review how we can kind of use a workaround to still get data from both of these rather than just this one, which is kind of what it looks like a little bit. Okay, and then next down here, we've got the Properties Explorer. So down here is going to show the properties for any item that you've selected. So as I select the different items, you can see that these change due to my selection. So all of the settings here are going to adapt to whatever you're selected or within. So if I click this table, we'll see that it shows the entire table properties instead of just each individual cell. Okay. And then I also want to review these icons over here. So these kind of report looking icons, you can click on that. And that's going to select, as you can see over here, the entire section that icon is signifying. So this one is this top one is going to be signifying the header section. And if we click on this one, it's going to be our details section. And then if we click on the bottom one, of course, that's going to be our footer section. Okay, and then further on down here, we have our zoom and further view editing options. If you hover over them, it'll give you a little explanation of what is going to happen. So if we want to add grid marks, we can do that. If we want to change our zoom, we can also do that. That's a little big for me, so I'm going to change it back. All right, and I think for now that should just about cover all of the basics. Oh, I'm sorry, the Report Explorer also. So this is going to list all of the objects within the report currently. So if you select, you can select the items through this, and if you're not sure which element on here is what, you can look over here and kind of see a contextual view of what is within the report and select it that way. Okay, and if you just right click in the extra area outside of the report or within the report, you'll have access to a lot of different options, especially whenever you click out into this kind of gray white space. Looks more yellow to me, but you can see you can do a lot of style formatting. You can select which item, which section you'd like to edit. You can have your clipboard paste copy functions here, and then further formatting down here as well. Okay, so I think I've about covered all of the basics within at least the functionalities of RMS. I'm not going to cover the Group Explorer right now. This is a little more advanced. We're trying to kind of do an overview, a higher level. So, but if you have any questions, please feel free to put those in the Q&A. Let us know, and if we can't get to it this afternoon, we'll try and address those some other way. Okay, so let's look at entering data into our text box. So first, since in our Data Explorer, we can see that we can't expand this and then drag in fields like we can with the default source. So for this, I'm going to go ahead and utilize the default data source and look for some fields I can go ahead and add. So contract ID is probably a good idea, and you can just drag and drop it. You'll notice these little hazard icons. This is just letting you know that things are overlapping. So just letting you know to move those out of the way or something. So I'll just get rid of this text box by deleting it and move our field to where that was. I'm going to get rid of these grid lines as well. Okay, and then move this down. It's probably okay. So now that we've added something, let's go ahead and preview, see what it looks like. So it is entering our contract number correctly. So we've verified that it's adding in our contract fields at least correctly. So we'll go ahead and add another one. How about location? Again, I'll drag and drop. That's not the only way you can add these. So I'll show you a different way you can do that as well. I'll add this over here. And so instead of dragging and dropping from this menu over here, you can right click, go to the expression, and first I'll look at this syntax over here. So if we click in there where we've dragged and dropped our field, we can see this syntax for pulling information from this data source. It's going to be fields, uppercase, sorry, the equal sign, uppercase fields, period. And in this case, we have the data source listed, and then we finally have the field name. So since we're kind of trying to do the same thing, but differently, I'm just going to go ahead and copy and paste this into the expression for this text box. If you right click and go to expression, I'm just going to paste that in. And I'm going to choose a different field. I'll add in the fiscal year just because. And then Let's check and make sure that that worked. So we've got our location and the fiscal year was entered right there. So now we've kind of pulled information from our default data source, but this report is for the collection that we chose earlier. So we want to pull data from that data source. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So first, this is where we're going to want all of our information input from that data collection. So we're going to select the whole table. As I did earlier, just click up here in this little border that appears in the table. Click on the corner. And down here in the properties, we're going to want to go to the data section. And we're going to want to bind the data to this table for that RFI screen we want to pull from. So I'll edit the bindings by clicking in there and clicking that ellipsis button, and then we'll click New. For the property path, since we're trying to pull data, I'm going to choose Data Source. And in here, we'll look at the drop down. And we're going to choose the option that contains the name of our field collection. So we're going to select that one, click OK, and check in on what that looks like now. So we can see that our data is populating. It's just we haven't specified what specific details we want to show here. So the rows and the amount of data is populating, but nothing else. So we'll go back to the design and we'll do our changes here. So this one I'm going to say is RFI number, subject. And what was my other one? We want to use, we'll do date submitted. Sounds good. Submitted. Okay. And then in our fields, we're going to follow a similar syntax to these fields up here. But since we've already binded our data, we're not going to need to add that data source. So we'll do equals, capital fields, period, and we'll just enter our field name. That's going to be RFI underscore number, or NO. And then we'll say OK. And real quick, before we move further, let's make sure it's doing it properly. It is. It's populating all of our RFI numbers. And then if we go back, we'll do the same thing. I'm just going to grab this and copy and paste it to just change our field names. There we go. I'll just add subject here. Click OK. And do the same thing here. This is going to get rid of the RFI underscore date submitted. There we go. Okay, and we'll check on it again, make sure that it's populating correctly. So it's starting to come together. There are some other things that I already see need to change. So if we look at the print preview, if we want to see what the report is really going to look like, once we're finished with it, we can do that by clicking on the print preview button. And if we go back to the design, let me click on preview again. It's going to default to that when we select that specific preview. So we'll leave it there so that we can see what our report is really going to look like rather than just a continuous stream of data. So now I'll go ahead and select my table. I noticed that the header row was not repeating on each page. So if we go in here and go to our properties for the table, we need to find layout. And right here, as we hover over it, we can see that this is column headers print on every page. And we can select true. And so now that's going to print all the column headers on every single page instead of only the first page. We'll bold it and left justify it. And then I'm going to try and pick up speed here real quick. Okay. And then I also noticed that the time was showing up in this date submitted field. So if we go here and click on format, we have a bunch of different formats we can use. Okay, and then click the date and time. So for this, I'll just make a selection. We'll choose just month and year. Okay, and then I'll preview once again. And as we can see, everything is looking pretty nice. I'm going to go back and adjust some columns real quick, make sure, and then try and hit on some conditional formatting. So we'll go here, right click, click on conditional formatting. And this is pretty similar to a program like Excel. So we'll just add a new rule. Everything is pulling up on my other monitor. And we'll add a new expression as well. So we're working with the RFI subject field. Oops. Underscore subject. And if we're going to see if there's a specific word in that subject, we're going to highlight it. So let's say clarification, since we are talking about RFIs. All right. Is that spelled correctly? Yes. And then here we're going to edit the style. We want that to change to depending on where that word can be found. I'll just do red. Looks good. And leave that stop if true checkbox unchecked. And then we will preview again. And as we can see, anything that contains the word clarification is going to be highlighted in red. And so that's pretty similar to another application that you may use. All right, let me see what else I can go over. You can add borders, as I mentioned previously. I'm just going to add a border around the entire table. If you want to add borders within the actual table, you'll need to do that within the cells themselves. So I'm going to preview again. And so now this is starting to look like a pretty good report. We've got everything blocked off with borders. We've got conditional formatting, and we've got our date format as we desire as well. All right. What else? Apologies. 1 second. Okay, so yeah, real quick, I'm going to try and go another level deeper into the conditional formatting. So if we click in here and click on the expression, we can see that in this main area, we've got a bunch of different options to add. We've got global objects, operators, parameters, and then we're going to focus on the functions part. Lots of different functions you can utilize in here, aggregates, conversion, data, and so on. We're going to look at the text function, and as you noticed, we can select these, not really select them, but just hover over them, and it's going to provide a little summarization. You can also click on it and it'll come up over here as well. It's going to give you some guidance on how to set this up and what to expect that it's going to return. I'm going to click on this substring, and since we've already selected our field here, I'm just going to double click it. Oops, undo that real quick. Put it here. Double click this. We'll move our syntax into these parentheses. And we're trying to basically shorten the words that show up in the subject column. So that's our field syntax. And then we're going to, as the parameters and the example states, we're just going to do a comma. And we want to start at 0 and end at, let's say, 8 characters. That sounds like it's probably about the first word of the subject. And then we'll click OK. And let's preview one more time. And so as we can see, we've shortened all of these down, and it did still maintain our conditional formatting. Even though it's not showing the entire word, that rule still exists and is applicable. So So that's just another level to adding conditional formatting or adding functions to cells. And so I think we're probably getting close to finished with our report. I'm just going to fix this real quick just to make it look better. And then just preview again, and that looks a lot better. Okay, and then if we're finished, we can go ahead and exit out of this. It's going to ask in RMS for us if we want to save, so I'll go ahead and get out. Do we want to reopen the same documents next time? I'm going to say no. You can say yes if you would like to open this same one every time. And then right here, we're going to click on yes, because we definitely want to save these design changes to the database. So click on yes. Real quick, I'm going to add an addendum here so that we can go and look and find this fresh. All right, go back and we'll go into a contract since we just created a contract custom report, and we'll search for it in our contract.
You have to unmark the under construction option for it to show up.
Correct. Yes, I forgot about that. Thank you. There we go. And we'll unselect that under construction because we have finished with it. We'll go back again. Again, enter our contract and go to Contract Reports module. And I'll search for it again. And it is showing under the correct menu. And if we select that, it's going to run for us and show the report we created. All right. So I kind of ran through that pretty quick, and I didn't get into the district report. It's essentially the same process, except you're going to be pulling data differently by using a query in the district report, district custom report. So I'll go to one of those just to show this screen. So this required collections selection is going to change to district queries rather than those same collections that are available for contract reports. So as we can see, we've got queries listed here. And then if we change this to contract, we can see that it's a different selection. So that's going to update based on whatever type of report you're doing. A contract ID won't be required. And then this is going to be at the district level. So I want to go ahead and open the floor up for any questions that you guys may have and address any feedback we've received. I can't see the chat, so.
There's no new questions.
Oh, okay. Are there any questions for people to unmute and ask it verbally? If not, I can jump into the district reports, district custom report real quick while we have the time.
If you go back to any of the custom reports, there's something, I realize I misspoke when I was talking about it. So if you go to a custom report and open up either a district or custom, doesn't matter. Or if you want to go ahead and create it, I'll make a comment when you get to that point.
Okay, yeah, I'll go ahead and create one. All right.
And if anybody has any questions, please go ahead and pipe up while we're doing this. So
yes,
on the screen right here, the one thing that I need to correct myself on the right-hand side, underneath where it says under construction, that's show in government mode and show in contractor mode, I misspoke. Those ones are for the report type of contract. That's whether or not it's going to show up both for the contractor and the government or not. So if it's clicked on show in government mode, it will show in government mode for contract reports. So you log into your contract, you go to contract reports, it'll show up. If it says show in contractor mode, it will show up for the contractors when they go in and log into the report and go to contract reports. If one is unchecked, then it is only showing up in one mode. So if you only want the contractor to see this report, then you would uncheck the show in government mode and check the show in contractor mode.
Okay, so this is for our district report. Oops. Okay. District reporting. So for this collection though, I'm going to go ahead and select that query we created earlier. Where are you? Here it is. Okay. And again, since we're doing a district custom report, we can leave this blank. And so we'll launch our report designer again. And since we had a parameter included in our query, it's still going to pull up this same parameter entry where we can update this from the default if needed. And if there's no default, we'll have to enter an office name. So we'll execute query. That's going to continue to launch the telereport designer. So I'm just going to show you what happens whenever I click no here. So if I click no, oops. Okay, it could not pull up my previous file. I think that's probably because I already saved it to the database. Yes. Okay, so let me retry that one more time. Click
That
yes.
option, when you say overwrite the template file, that shows up whether it's the first time it's created or when you're going through and doing it a second time. Now, one thing to note, if you say no the very first time, it's going to have a problem like the error you just ran into, because that first time it's actually creating a folder structure for it to save onto your computer so that it can open it up. And it has to save it onto your computer in order for it to open it up so that you can make changes to it. Now,
Right.
remember that button when you closed out that allowed you to open it up the next time. So it is possible that you can run this when RMS is not online. So if you're completely offline, you can edit these reports, but note that you won't be able to save it up to the database. If you do that, unless you come in here and choose no when you open up this custom report. And then when it opens, it's going to open what's already saved on your computer. And then when you close it, it'll upload it that way. Go ahead, Haley.
All right. Thank you for that further guidance, Jen. So here I'll just select yes to get our report, to get Telerik to open up. And so real quick, I just want to point out some main differences between the contract custom and the district custom. The data situation over here is going to be about the same. We'll have to bind our data from that query collection that we added. And the default for district reports is going to be this district essentials menu. And we can pretty much do the same thing that we did with the contract report. We can just drag our field in. Again, it's going to show us that our stuff is overlapping. That is okay because I'm going to delete this. And I just want to double click in here and show you the expression. So we can see that everything is capitalized here. Or I'm sorry, that's actually going to be in a different area. So let's preview this real quick and make sure our data is pulling in correctly. It is, it's wrapping it. So let's go ahead and extend it. And that will keep that from happening. And again, we're going to bind our data to this table by using the Properties Explorer and going to the Data section, then the Bindings. And we're going to add that the same way that we added the data source for the other contract custom report. Instead, we're just going to choose our query collection. Okay. And I'll go ahead and do the same thing here. Okay. And then we'll click in here and we'll go ahead and type our field syntax. And since we already binded our data source, we're not going to have to add that in here. And I'm going to go ahead and add the RFI number as I did in the contract custom report. Click OK. and preview. Okay, our data isn't showing. So that's a difference that I wanted to point out here. The expressions in the district custom report are case sensitive. So we're just going to uppercase these. Click OK. Preview. And since we changed that and updated it to be uppercase, which is going to be the case for district custom reports, it's now populating our data as it should. Okay, for the sake of time, I'm just going to get out of here and close. We did one column. That's pretty good. Get out of here. Click no. And then, yes, we're going to select to save. All right, and since we're finished, we're going to uncheck the under construction box, and then we're going to navigate back to our summary reports. All district custom reports that you create are going to show up in the summary reports tile. Well,
You can find one that's a custom report under where it says author. If you just remove the option for RMS Center, so the funnel off to your, yep, that funnel right there, and then you can select all of them and then remove the one that says RMS Support Center. And then there's all of our custom reports that were created for the district. And just
okay. So mine is not showing here.
Was it still under construction?
No, I didn't uncheck that. This one. Oh, back. This is the one. Weird. Maybe that's what happened.
Yeah, if you don't have that show in government, it's not going to show anywhere.
I honestly don't remember deselecting that. That's crazy. Okay. So try it again. There it is. Okay, that worked. And we're going to run it. Same parameter entry screen. We can change it if needed. And our unfinished report is displaying correctly. All right. So that concludes our presentation. I wish I could have gotten into a lot more. I did have more planned, so perhaps we can pick that up at a later session. Here are our references we've listed that you may find useful. I've already thought of others that we can add here, so we'll update these slides and get them out to you. We've also got our standard links down here for the YouTube channel, the service desk to enter a ticket, and then our service desk phone number. And finally, we'll open it for any last questions you all may have. Okay, I don't hear any. Looks like the Q&A is empty.
Alrighty, thanks everyone. We'll get this video up on our YouTube site, and right now, if you guys want a link to these slides, if you go to rms.usacearmy.mil, the link to the slides are currently on the homepage. If you guys have any questions, feel free to put in a ticket. Thank you very much for attending. Have a great day.